as everyone starts entering, I'll go ahead and introduce. So welcome to Integrate Online, presented by the West Virginia University Reed College of Media, which offers renowned online programs in marketing communications. Thank you for joining us. Today we'll be discussing strengths-based personal branding with Jessie Barclay. So I'll let Jessie take it from here.
Hi, everyone. You can leave your cameras on or off. I will not be offended either way, but my name is Jessie. I am working for the WVU Purpose Center. I work as the Student Experience Manager. And in my past life, about a year ago, I did work for the WVU Career Services Center. I was there for about a decade. I was the Assistant Director of Career Development. And before that, I was a corporate recruiter. So personal branding is very important to me, especially when we think about careers. And I'm really excited to share with you all today how we can use strengths in our personal branding to truly make an impact with those around us and make sure they're understanding the best version of you that you want people to know. So we'll have the chat open if you guys have questions as we go along. But most importantly, I do have, of course, I lost that. I have something to share with everyone. Can anyone see anything in the chat? I did put a file. I'm going to add it again. And if you guys want to download this and go along, I've learned through my background's actually also in counseling. I have a master's in counseling. I have learned that if we listen and we write things down or type them out, our brain actually solidifies that information much easier. It gets our left and our right side of our brain working together. So I have given you guys a personal branding worksheet that we can go through. We're going to ask a lot of questions, but most importantly today is all about self-reflection. And we're going to talk about strengths. So if you want to get your results out, I have my top 5 on the screen. My number 1's positivity, if you couldn't figure that out already. My number 2 is woo, which means winning others over. I have connectedness, which is my favorite of all of my strengths. And that means I see possibility and connections between all people. I have a ranger, which means I love multitasking. And then I have adaptability. So if anything happens like with technology, it's not going to freak me out during the session. My adaptability helps me a lot every day. And so that's a little bit about me. And we'll go ahead and get started. So what is personal branding? Well, personal branding is your story. It's the impression that those get from you, the understanding, the feeling that those get from you when they first meet you, when they see you on social media, when they see your resume for the first time. It's who you are authentically, but also on paper, if that makes sense. And so it's really, really important to make sure that whatever you're putting out there is authentic to you. It also is true to you. A lot of times we go through life and we just say things, or we may not put a lot of intention into how we address ourselves, how we address our online persona, and any of our marketing material. But when we think about personal branding, it's all about intention, and it's all about the message that you want others to know. And so we'll get into all of these. But first, I wanted you to think first the 4 principles of personal branding. Number 1 is authenticity. People love people who are themselves. Most people very quickly, when you meet them, can pick up on whether you're trying too hard or being fake. And so even in our personal branding, we want to be our true selves. And we want to make sure the message that we're getting across is the message we want people to hear or to see or to feel. We want our personal branding to be in line with our values. We're going to do an exercise today on helping us kind of realign our values with the person that we want to be, maybe this year or in the future, so we can be really intentional in the messaging we're giving to others. Natural abilities and skills, that's the strengths aspect of this. As we talk about Clifton strengths and we talk about how we can use them in our personal branding, we're talking about those natural ability and skills. That is strengths as a tool to help us understand those natural abilities and skills and give us a language to use them. And then number four is consistency. Some of the most successful people have found that if their personal branding is consistent on all markets, social media, when you meet a person, all of those, they have better results and more success with getting their message out. And so we're gonna talk a lot about all of these today as we go through. But before I get started, are there any questions? Oh, and thank you so much for adding your strengths. If anyone else wants to add their strengths, I appreciate this. And is it Essence? Is that how you say your name? I love that your camera's on too. I'll look at you a lot. Consistency is your number one. Context, which is my number seven. Love it. Relator, developer, responsibility. You have a lot of executing, which is so cool. And we'll talk a lot about how we can use that to work on our personal brand. So thank you. Oh, and thanks, Stephanie. I had a feeling you were achiever from when we've been working together. Oh, this is so helpful. Thank you all. And I'll probably go back and look at those as we look for examples as we think about strengths and personal branding. So the first thing I want us to think about is, what's a brand that you respect? Personal branding is basically your brand. Like that's it. But when you think of a brand that you respect or that you kind of relate with, what are some words that come? I have this on the worksheet. It's the first thing. Think of a brand you respect. It could be, honestly, it could be like face wash. It could be a company. Think of a brand that you use, may have loyalty to. And then what are some words that are associated with that brand? And what feelings? That's even more important. Give you guys a few seconds for that. If you want to pop that into the chat, what brand you're thinking of, or you can unmic yourself and talk about it, whatever works best for you. Any kind of interaction, and I'm happy. My positivity and my woo loves that. Whole Foods. I used to value Whole Foods before its acquisition as well, but I do value Trader Joe's or Aldi. I think that for me, the feeling I get is they care about their customers because they're keeping prices low. They care about the people they're working with because they pay them a wage that is worth their time. And so those are the feelings I get when I think of that. Dove, Kathy put, women's unique differences should be celebrated. Exactly. That is the brand that Dove wants. It's what Dove is trying to get. And I feel that way when I use Dove. So when you think about your brand, and I appreciate these are great examples, and I think it'll get us in the right mindset. So when we're thinking about that brand that you respect, now I want you to think about a person. Like, well, who's a person that you respect? And what are some ways that they represent themselves and their ideas? It could be a famous person like Taylor Swift. It could be just someone that you work with. I very much respect my boss, Whitney. She is a hard worker. She is always on top of things. And because of that, that's the brand that she gives whenever she works with anyone or any partner with the Purpose Center. I also do respect Taylor Swift and I love what she does for women. But think of that person and then write down a few things either on the worksheet or not. And if you want to share, oh, you don't see it wasn't in, I'm going to reshare the worksheet for those of you that just came. Oh. It is a Word doc, so it may not look perfect when you open it, but the content's there. And does anyone want to share the person? The other person I always think about is my grandmother. When I think of my grandmother, I think of love. I think of dedication. I think of devotion. And those are definitely phrases that I try really hard to use, especially now that I'm a mother. And so if anyone wants to share, if not, just have that person in mind whenever we're thinking about this. And I'll give you guys a few seconds. Okay, so we've thought about a brand, we've thought about a person. Now I want us to think about ourselves. When we think about our unique story, when we think about what factors are in our story reflection number 3 on the worksheet is what are some important parts of your story that have impacted who you are and your motivations, your values, and your perspectives? These could be positive things or negative things. It could just be, I always think of resilience when I think of my own story. I had Lyme disease very young, early in college. I had to overcome that. I recently had a hysterectomy. I had to go through endometriosis. A lot of my story is resilience. And when I think of my brand, that's what I try to give out to people. Also, remember, you don't have to share everything. You can just write it down and start thinking about it. I'll give you guys a few minutes. Just write down or type out a few of those aspects that help you kind of imagine what your story is. Okay, we're going to move forward because we have a lot to cover. But if you ever want to just kind of take some time and go through this, you can always take more time. I want you to feel how it goes through before we do that. So, as we're thinking about our own stories, I want you to also think about how do you think the following people would describe you? You thought about how you would describe yourself. But I want you to start thinking about how would your family, your friends, your coworkers, employees around you if you're a leader, and your professional network, how would they describe you? Or what do you think they think your brand is? And it's okay if they're different. Try to think about whether they think differently. Some people are different at work than they are at home. And I'll give you a few seconds to kind of think about that. And Sierra, I also have a first generation background. I think that does make people super motivated and driven, especially if they've broken through that barrier. I love that. That's definitely going to be part of your personal statement. So thank you for sharing that. And if anyone wants to share, especially if maybe you're different around your friends and family that you are your coworkers, or if it's the same, if anyone feels like they need to share, I would appreciate it, but it's not necessary. Okay, so thinking about that, thinking about how you see yourself, how others around you may see you. Um, how do you think how do you think these people would also describe you as a leader? Because that's different if you think about it. Oh, Shantae, thank you so much for sharing that. Going through your strengths, and I'll acknowledge that you're a learner and have a knack for resolving conflict. That's awesome. What are your strengths? I think you shared them. I'm gonna go look. Learners are number one. That makes perfect sense. It's probably why you're here today. I bet there's a lot of learners on here. All right. And usually I spend more time on leadership, but we're not going to today because I really want you guys to spend some time thinking more about yourself. But know that there's a difference. There is a difference when it comes to our personal brand and then the brand as a leader. There's different intention involved when you think about it. And we can go over that a little later. So I want us to think about our why. Our why is very much intrinsically intertwined with our personal branding. Our why is what gets us up in the morning, but it's also who we are at our best. So I want you to think about the last time you did something and you were like, I feel great. I feel like I accomplished something, especially for those of you who have achiever. I feel great because I helped someone feel better, especially if you have relationship building. And these are going to be kind of the basis of what we use for our personal statements, for our professional branding. So I have on the worksheet, there's three areas that you can add, and those experiences can be there. Yeah, Essence, what's up?
Can you hear me? Okay, good morning, everybody. So, something you just said gave me the most random thoughts. I figured I'll ask Jessie and see what she has to say. Um, I am not achiever. I think achiever was at the very bottom of my list. It's
Same.
my bottom five. And so sometimes when people ask questions like that, I find it hard for me to say, "Oh yeah, well I've done this, this, and this," and it's not that I haven't achieved anything, but I'm just wondering, like, since that's very low on my strengths, is that why in some moments where I have to say, "Hey, I did this," is it why it's so hard for me?
100%, that's exactly why. And that's why I try to make sure. Do you have a lot of relationship building or strategic think? Yeah. And so I like to think of the last time I felt really great. I had a session with a student. She was crying, and at the end, she felt better. Do you see what I mean? Like for some people, it's checking things off their list, and that's great. For some people, it's I helped another person, and that's when I felt wonderful. For some people, it's I cooked a great meal and fed my family. It can be any and all of the above. And that's where I'm glad you're thinking about your strengths because that can be a key into it. And I hope that answers your question, but definitely that's 100% why when someone asks that question, you're like, I don't know. Because we always think of, is it things that we're accomplishing? And it doesn't have to be.
Thank you.
Of course. And remember, it can be at home, it can be anywhere. It can be at home, it can be at work. I take a pottery class, and that's sometimes when I feel my best because I'm out in the community. Um, it can be any of those things. Does anyone want to share? And if not, again, it's okay.
Good morning.
Hi.
I've been taking some time from work purposefully after leaving the corporate world, and I recently repainted my entire kitchen cabinets while I was off before the holidays, and I enjoyed that so much. And it's really kind of out of the realm of things I have done in a long time, but I realized that I'm not being creative enough in the work I was doing, and maybe not like in that realm, but I felt like I was at my best in a different part of my life than I've really touched in a while. So
That is so great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Marcy. What's your top 5?
I am a learner is my number 1. Connectedness is my number 2. Where did I put that document? Responsibility, activator, and input.
Okay. Oh,
Very well-rounded.
You are very well-rounded. I was gonna say that's a lot of domains all at once there. And instantly
Actually,
when
the
you said
only
learner,
person, like when we did this at work, I was the only person that had 1 in every category.
yeah, and well-rounded is what I use when I see that. That's awesome. And I just have one question. You don't have to answer since we're in front of a bunch of people, but what had you ever finished cabinets before or painted them, or was this something you had to learn from scratch?
Something I did from scratch, something I learned new.
There, your learner was all about it. Like you felt it, and anyone else who has learner, and I would even say activator, because activator, people who have it, learn as they go. So you probably had YouTube with you as you were going along, and you loved that. And that's where that word creativity, I can see those learner and the activator working together. So I hope as you're finding your next role, you find something where you can actually where you can do that, and be allowed to. Because sometimes at work we're not always allowed. So thank you for sharing. That's awesome. Make sure you write that one down too. Okay. So another thing that we think of when we think about our why is we can think about the world around us. So I'm just going to click to the next one. Our why helps us remember the impact that we want to have, or the problems we're trying to solve, or the change that we want to see. It's again why we get up in the morning. I like to think of it. I've always loved helping people kind of see the best version of themselves. And at career services in my past role, it was them helping find the perfect fit for a job. The reason I love my new job is because it's more holistic. It's more feeling comfortable in your own skin and being confident about it. And so my career definitely now feeds in with my values and feeds in with how I want to change the world. But on the sheet, just so you can write it down, what is the impact you want to have on the world around you? It can be as simple as Ralph Waldo Emerson had this quote. It's, to leave a path you created from walking so much, to leave a healthy child, to leave a garden, to leave a book, to leave an impact all over the world is still having an impact. So remember, it doesn't have to be this world-changing thing. It could change one person's world. It could change an environment. So just think about what impact is it when you use and have you want to have on the world around you. And then the next question is, what is the change you want to create? And these are heavy hitting questions, guys, and I recognize that. So if you need to skip a few, that's okay. But when we think about strengths-based personal branding, we're trying to make sure we're conveying those deep thoughts into everything that we share. And then what problem can you help solve for an employer, a potential employer, or society? And yes, I will 100% share this PowerPoint. Okay. So I think if you guys want to, how to each of your strengths show up and why, I believe, is the next question. Before we go back to values, I do want you to kind of think about your top 5 strengths and how each of them can help you make a change in the world. That's a huge question. I don't feel fair. It doesn't feel fair asking you to do that. Just pick one strength and think about how you can use it. Shantae, honestly, you already talked about your learner. I think that would be great. Anyone who's talked about learner, I think just having the hunger to learn more will feed progress in any capacity. So I think that's a good way to think about it. And if anyone wants to share what strength they use and how they want to see the world, we love that. Do you have any suggestions getting clarity? You want to do so many things? Yes, I do. So Morgan, I think for those of us, my arranger wants to do 1,000 things at once all the time. I think that one way that we can think about doing so many things at once is starting with one thing. What's the one thing that you could start with today or tomorrow, within your strengths and using them? Just one thing at a time, and allow yourself an hour to think about that thing or to do that thing. That has worked for me in so many ways. We're a small office here at the Purpose Center, and all 3 of us want to do 1,000 things at once. And we have learned that we can't unless we do one at a time. I think my father-in-law always says, "How do you eat an elephant?" And it's one bite at a time. No, I don't condone eating an elephant, but if you did have to, maybe that would be the best way to think about it. You don't seem to be the only one that has that problem, Morgan. It seems like other people do. Shantae, do you have any I love bullet journaling. It's also my husband's favorite thing. Um, do you have high intellection in your top 5 by any chance? Or any strategic thinking? Because a lot of times when I have people with high strategic thinking in workshops like this, the best thing for them to do is to take it after and spend some time doing it, because your brain doesn't work fast. It does, but it needs to process on its own. Does that kind of make sense? So if anyone on here is kind of struggling, I get that these are big questions. I'm also happy to meet with you all afterwards. I have coaching sessions. We can talk about things. And I'm also happy to read. Oh, you've learner and analytical. There you go. We're gonna
I
try to
don't I
move
don't know
our
if you can
line.
hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say the comment I was gonna make is I find that for myself, I can sort of like quickly think on my feet, but then there's like a moment of like, am I doing the right thing? Let me think about it, make sure I have the right process before I like keep going down the road. So that's my
And
my thing.
no, and analytical, if anyone else has it, you need all the data before you feel comfortable moving forward. And me just kind of going through, you don't know what the rest of the PowerPoint is. That has to cause lots of anxiety. Makes perfect sense. Oh, I love it. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to values. On the sheet, you'll actually see the values activity. You guys can see this. So I like to think of, we sometimes have different values in different parts of ourselves. And so we actually broke it up into 4. So yourself, what do you value? Family, friends, and society. And if you want society to be whatever works best for you, just kind of work on that. I want you to think about your values, and then we're going to go back and think about this. Some values examples. I know a lot of people have a hard time kind of just coming up with words on their own, but I always need examples to invoke feeling. And so here are some kind of common values. I know I want everyone to put their name under myself because you need to be valuing yourself before you can put value in other things. Especially those with high relationship building. Sometimes that's something you may forget to do. Um, I know for me, I've worked with a lot of students that really value wealth and living to a certain standard, and there is nothing wrong with that. Values are never something that people should be ashamed of. But as soon as you know what you value, it helps you think about how you want to brand yourself. If you're out there to make more money, you need to be branding yourself as someone who's looking to be at a higher level. If you're out there to help people, then you probably need to think more about, happiness as something that you may value. None of them are bad. None of them are good. They're very neutral. So just take a few minutes and see if you can fill out a few of those. I have to laugh and share this too. So my high adaptability needs adaptability sometimes, especially for my friends and family. And that's not always possible, especially when there are people close to you that like to have things a very specific way. And so it's also okay to have values that are different from those around you. Remember, we're thinking more about those things that we value for ourselves. Humor is huge for me. I have to have humor in everything that I do. I don't think I would make it very far if I didn't. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you're feeling good about this section or if you need a little more time. Perfect. Thank you. Oh, I love that. The lesson I learned is the importance of being able to distinguish between your values and those around you. Oh, that is a hard lesson. We try really hard at the Purpose Center to help students do that sooner rather than later. I'm 37. I think I learned this when I was around 33. Think of all that time I wasted where I could have been really focusing on my own values. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Okay, so now we're going to start kind of putting things together. When we think about talents and strengths and those natural abilities, we think about a common language. And for us here at the Purpose Center, we help students find their purpose, their natural abilities and talents through the strengths assessment. Does that kind of make sense to everyone? That's how we use the strengths assessment. And when we think of personal branding, we also use the strengths assessment here to help us understand how we can articulate our brand differently to different audiences. And so those talents are naturally reoccurring patterns, thoughts, and behaviors that show up in every aspect of your life. And for most of you, they probably have been there for a really long time. We just haven't really thought about it. My favorite story that I always tell is my mom loves to tell people that when I was 2 to 3 years old, when I would go to grocery stores and be in like that top part of the cart, whoever we stopped or went next to, I would compliment them on some part of their outfit or a bag that they had or something. And that is my positivity. It has been here for as long as I have. And knowing that about myself has helped me know more how I can show up for myself, how I can show up for others. Um, and it can actually it helps me understand more about my own brand. My brand is very positive. It's very it's really understanding that I'm here to help the people of West Virginia be the best versions of themselves. And I use my positivity in everything I do. I use all of my strengths, and that's what I want us to work on next. So, what we're gonna do, everyone has their strengths because you've been putting them on here. But if you need access to your strengths and you haven't yet, you can go to this website. If you took the strengths through the WVU platform, this is actually something we changed the platform over to a new, it looks different and there's a new website. So I have that on the screen. And what I really want you guys to start thinking about is what are some words and phrases that resonate with you from your strengths? So if you go to your insight guide, if you go to the Gallup website, you can actually read your insight guide. It's written for you very specifically. In fact, it's based on how you answered all of the questions. And the chance of someone else having the exact same top 5 as you is 1 in 34 million. So I saw, Essence and I both have high input. The way that my input is going to read is going to be completely different than Essence's because of how we answered all of the questions. So I want you guys to find that insight guide. I want you to take a few minutes to read through it. On the worksheet, you'll see I have room for all 5 strengths. And I want you to write down a few of those phrases for each of them. And I'll give you time. I'm going to try not to talk the whole time. It's very difficult for me. And here are all of the strengths by domain. So even if you just want to go through and kind of remember them like this, we'll talk about it a little bit. I'm going to give you time. If anyone has questions, put it in the chat. All right, I'm going to give you guys 2 more minutes. If you don't get to all of them, you can always go back. I think this is a really important exercise in understanding your own strengths. But I'll give you a few more minutes and then I'll ask to see if anyone wants to share any revelations they found. All right. Does anyone want to share anything that maybe resonated with them when they read one of their strengths?
I can share. Um, I only got to my third strength. But my first strength is consistency. And the words and phrases that resonated are attentive, knowledgeable of thoughts and feelings of others, aim for excellence. I devise a series of steps. Um, I think that being uniformly sociable and responsive is purely practical. I believe that or define fairness as giving everyone the same advantage. My second, oh no, I didn't type it. My second strength was context, and some of the things I highlighted are predict how people will behave, how problems will be solved, and how decisions will be made, or how events will unfold. That's like a super gift of mine. I've had a couple of situations that happen, and I was like, watch and see now. This and this and this is going to happen. And people come back and say, girl, you remember when you said blah, blah, blah? That happened. So that's true. You strive to understand the what, when, who, where, how, and why of events. You are determined to create a framework of facts so you can put things into perspective. And then the next strength is relator. And what I highlighted are people turn to you for guidance. You help them see a situation or problem from a different perspective. I actually feel in those moments, I feel accomplished because that's happened to me on various levels. And I say accomplished because if I'm talking to like my manager or somebody and they're like, oh, I never thought about it like that, that makes me feel good.
Awesome.
Reading is the key that opens the door to a world of fresh ideas. Reading is a pleasure, not a chore. Typically, you can talk about complicated topics or situations by highlighting only the basic points. That took me back to a moment in college where everybody in my accounting class was struggling. And there was this one lady who was significantly older than everybody else in the class, and she was struggling the most. And so I helped her with whatever. And she was like, we need you to teach the class because you made it easy. So I will take a really big, complicated issue and I will break it down into smaller, like easily to attainable steps or something easy to understand. But on the flip side of it, I tend to take like a small issue and break it down to even smaller things too. Anywho, but yeah. And I'll stop
No,
there.
I love that. I'm so glad that you were able to kind of see yourself so quickly and all of your strengths and kind of relating it. You've used your relator skills, to be honest. So for those of you who have relator, one of the top qualities is you don't love surface level things.
No.
You love going deep. And that's exactly what you did with this exercise.
Oh,
And I think
wow.
that's pretty cool. I love it. And it's going to help you kind of think about your personal brand. You're not going to just be surface level. You are going to help people at a deeper level. And that's something I strive for, and I'm kind of jealous of. My woo won't let me do that because I want to know everyone, but I don't get to the point where I can get as deep. So I think that that is so cool. So thank you so much for sharing. And Amy actually just wrote, 4 of my 5 strengths are related to people in some way, forging connections between groups, understanding the uniqueness of others. So I bet it's individualization, and appreciating that and being the source of seeking guidance. You're a great listener. I love this. I'm glad you guys are seeing these connections. And I'm so glad that we took the time to do that because it's going to help us as we're moving forward to think about our personal brand and how we can create goals based on what we're naturally good at. Not to harp on the achievers, but kind of like I was talking at the beginning, a lot of times when we think about even goal setting, people who have high achiever are really great at it because that's what the articles we read, they cater to the achievers. They don't necessarily help those that don't have achieving or checking things off their list at the top of their strengths. So this is another way to think of that as we're moving forward. I did want to give some time. Is there anyone who needs clarification on any of their strengths or has questions about other strengths? That's why I left this up on the screen. I love when we get to know our own strengths, but it's also helpful to know about others. So if anyone has a question or is like, I want to know what maximizer means, I am happy to go through it. So just let me know and we'll move forward. Give you a few seconds to think about it. Okay. So the last part that we're going to talk about is consistency before we get to goal setting and actually putting together our brand. When I talk about consistency, it's very difficult. I'll just tell you my own struggles with consistency. Because of my adaptability, I love to meet people where they are, which means that my story will change based on the person I'm standing in front of because I like to meet them where they are and understand their needs. So consistency is the one I have the biggest problem with when it comes to my own personal brand. And so you want to think about how are you creating a consistent brand and how can you reflect your why and your strengths more consistently. So for me, because helping people understand how to be the best versions of themselves is part of my personal brand, my adaptability works well. For someone not that isn't their whole personal statement, their whole thing, adaptability may not work well for them. If for someone who needs to have that consistency and appreciates that consistency, that can also be part of their personal brand. So I want us to take a few minutes, and I did have this written down. No, I need to add this. Just think about for a second. I'm going to add this to the worksheet. How can you reflect on your why and your strengths more consistently? And how can you stay accountable to your why when you're facing a challenge? When I mean that is sometimes, especially if you're overworked or burnt out, or you just have way too many things going on, you may not have the chance to be your authentic self or have people see the true you. So, in situations like that, which of your strengths can you lean into to create that more consistent aspect? For Essence, she has consistency as her number one. So that's kind of like that's what she does. But for others, how do you do that? And what strength do you use to make sure you're staying accountable to your authentic self and being consistent? And if anyone wants to share, that's good. I'll just share what I do. My connectedness helps all of my strengths because that's where I lean into whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed. I like to remember that everything's connected and sometimes things happen for a reason. And then I can slow down and I can be a better, consistent version of that self that I'm trying to portray. So when you think about your strengths, which one do you think you lean into the most in those times of need? Does anyone have one that they know they use that they want to share? And if not, just keep it in there and just remember, I call them our root or our connector strength. It's kind of the one that we use to lean on the most. Yeah, Essence, do you want to share?
I dropped it in the chat, but I think by default, I lean most into responsibility, even though consistency is the top. Okay, so I created another post and I put consistency and I said that I advocate for others. That I do that by default. My best friend says that I advocate for other people more than I advocate for myself. And I can't help it. But I think in most situations, like at work, at home, or whatever, I lean into responsibility. And what I put for that strength is that I finish what I start. So even when, like, I may not have the answer or I may not know exactly what to do, like my first response is, okay, well, we started it, so we have to finish it, however that looks. So I feel like I lean into responsibility about as much as consistency.
Yeah, but that's also awesome because that means that no matter who you're talking to and no matter who you're working with, your personal brand's going to be on point because your responsibility means that you are going to do what you say you're going to do. And so remember that when you're writing your personal statement. That's awesome. Responsibility is very low for me. My adaptability doesn't love it. So I get very jealous of people who have it. That's awesome. Anyone else want to share? Okay. So when we're thinking about our personal brand, goals have to be a part of it. You can't really put a brand out without knowing the why and also knowing the audience. So that goal is so important. Okay, so to be authentic in your branding, you need to put thought into your goals, which is why we're going to do it today. So what I want you to think of, and I have this on the worksheet, what is a personal or professional goal that you would like to achieve in the next 1 to 2 years? I don't have a lot of high futuristic, so I didn't put 5 to 10 years because that scares me. But if you need to change it, if you have high futuristic to 5 to 10 years, that's okay. Just remember that these are adaptable. And then after that, I want you to think about, honestly, maybe you want to help those in rural areas access better care or bring more jobs to West Virginia. Those are some of the ones that I love to work on. Those are always like big ones I'm thinking of. And then think about your why and your values and keep them in mind when you're thinking about your goal. Are they aligned? And we'll talk a little bit about that afterwards. But I'm going to give you guys some time to answer. What's the goal you have? If you prefer get big goals, and then how can you use your top 5 strengths to help you achieve those goals? That's how we put strengths into this, and how those that may not always reach the goals that they have can put some more thought on how they can lean into it, and we can have a discussion on that. I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna let you guys do your work, and I will come back. All right. I know it's 90 minutes and I know we're starting to lose some people, but does anyone want to share one of their goals, if not completely understandable, or maybe how they're going to use one of their strengths to accomplish that goal? I can tell you guys one of mine so that we can kind of put it into context. Um, so my husband and I are really into barbecue. Like we love, we have a trailer smoker. We have gotten really good at meat and vegetables smoking. My goal in the next 4 years is to be on the barbecue circuit. Now, I want to win some prizes. It's not something I'm very good at, but I want to try. So this is where I'm using my husband's goals as well. He has very high analytical, so he's going to make sure we have everything we need to be competitive. And I am going to use my positivity and my woo to get to know as many people in the area so I can get really good ideas of how we can be great at what we do. So that's just it may seem silly, but it's something that's important to me. So that's just an example of how I'm going to use my strengths for that one particular goal. Um, Anyone else want to share something? If not, no worries. Okay. So now what I want us to work on is writing our personal statement. Our personal statement isn't like for grad school or anything like that. It's a statement that we use when we are either introducing ourselves to others so we can stay consistent, um, or something we may be able to put on LinkedIn. It's a statement that shows your authentic self, shows your natural skills and abilities, consistency, as well as, your values. So all four of the aspects. Um, when we think about it, it's going to be ever changing just like we are. So I don't want you to think I'm going to write this personal statement, I'm going to use it forever. Remember, you can also use it differently, but I want you to start trying to write it down. So thinking about your why and your strengths and your personal story, what is it that you want people to know when they meet you? And I'll kind of show you what mine is. So my name is Jessie Barclay. I work for the WVU Purpose Center as the Student Experience Manager. I love my job because I have the opportunity to help the WVU and West Virginia community find their purpose and be the best versions of themselves. I do this through coaching and education. I'm a West Virginia native, and it's important for me to be a tiny part of the progress that West Virginia needs to thrive. That's my why. That's my skills and abilities. It's through coaching and education. And that's what we're going to try to do. And I'm here to talk about anything. I see Essence has her hand raised. So do you want to comment or ask a question?
Oh no, I was clapping because that sounds really, really nice.
But it took me a while to write that, and I really appreciate that. But I had to go through all of these exercises to get to it. I wanted to make sure that my values were part of it, that I was being authentic. For a long time, when I was a corporate recruiter, I lived in Boston and I was trying to be a person that didn't feel right to me. I needed to be home in the mountains. As soon as I came home, it all kind of made sense. And so think about it, think about the how, think about your strengths. And we can take some time to kind of write this down. I want you guys to try to draft something. You always start with your name. So you can at least write that one down. If you want to share it in the chat, go for it. If you need more time to process it, that's absolutely okay. But I did want to hold this space for everyone for the next 10 to 15 minutes so that you do I would need someone to tell me to do it before I actually did it. So I'm going to hold this space for you so you're able to. And if you have questions, you can just put it in the chat or ask, and I'm happy to help. Andrea asked a question, is there a rule of thumb of how long these should be? So it's a great question. I always like to say it should be under 20 seconds if you're going to say it out loud. I like to think of this is what, if I'm meeting someone for the first time at like a networking event or a dinner where there's people that I'm trying to get to know at a deeper level, this is maybe how I would introduce myself. It also may be on my LinkedIn. So you want it to be quick enough that they can get an idea of who you are quickly, but not so quick they don't get the right details. And that's why I try to always think of those four aspects of the four principles of personal branding. I hope that helps. You just don't want it to be so long they lose interest or so short they don't get what they need. Amy asked, what if we're seeking a career pivot? How can we demonstrate in our statement versus focusing on our current role so much? Perfect. I love that question. So we would probably just change a little bit at the end. You want it to be consistent in your messaging and your values. But at the bottom, I talk a lot about why it's important for me to help West Virginia thrive. If I was going to do a career pivot, I would talk about what was important to me that relayed to the person I was talking to. If you're seeking a very specific type of role, then maybe talking a little bit about that. And that's something, if you guys do want to meet with me after, I'm happy to do that and kind of help you do that. It's the transition to a new career is hard, especially if you're still trying to figure out where it is you want to go. That's why we really focus on those values and your skills and abilities, because that can tell them more about who you are than actually telling them where you want to go, if that makes sense. Does anyone want to share or have any other questions? I know we're kind of running out of time, but I did want to open the floor if anyone wanted to share. I will be giving Stephanie the PowerPoint as well as how to get in contact with the Purpose Center. I'm going to put my email directly into the chat so you have it.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you for all of the insights. I think I've taken the Strengths Finder a couple times now, but first time putting it into a personal branding stuff, so that's cool. So my question is around how you'll be perceived by others if you start putting out yourself as, a personal brand statement, and some people go kind of over the top with it, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So, I had a very senior leader say to me literally last week, kind of not finding the value in that, and putting yourself out there versus the company that you work for. I guess it's around like, where's the balance? Like how do you find the right balance of valuing yourself versus your employer and that sort of thing?
A great question. I'm going to ask you what your strengths are. It helps me put things into perspective. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So mine are empathy, maximizer, strategic, relator, and adaptability?
So the first thing I was, as you were asking the question, I'm like, I hope she has empathy. I hope she has empathy. And it's your number one.
Yeah.
Use your empathy. You can get a read on people. It's your number one. And because of that, as you're meeting with someone for the first time, you're gonna get the feeling, are they gonna be more like that person that's your senior leader that doesn't really have time for it? Or are they gonna be that person that really wants to know you at that deeper level? And so just use your empathy. I wish that I could give everyone the same advice, but I can't if they don't. And that's why, again, none of the things that I will ever help people with in our workshop is one size fits all. But do you know what I mean by use your empathy?
I think so. It's because I feel like, to me, it sounds like I need to use empathy as well as adapting to the situation a little bit.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And so have you ever met someone you were able to kind of be your authentic self and it went really well? Of course, or you probably wouldn't be where you are right now. Think about those situations and how you were able to use it. And that's what I want you to try to do as much as possible. Those of you that do have high empathy, it's my number 7. We feel everything, good and bad. And so we sometimes also overread and freak out about it a little bit before we meet someone. But just try to be present with it. It's harder whenever you're emailing someone. When you're emailing someone, always go the midway. Always do middle amount. You don't want to do too much and you don't want to do too little. But in person, you're going to be able to use your vibes and your feelings and your empathy to see, does this person want to know the highlights or they want to know deeper? I hope that helps.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm. Anyone else? That was a great question. And just so you guys know, here is the email. You could, if you want to just email the Purpose Center, here's our email. I did put my email in the chat. It's the best way to get a hold of me because we live by our email at this point. We don't have a phone number at the Purpose Center. It's just not what we do. But I very much appreciate everyone's time. Does anyone want to share something that they found of value today? This is kind of my self-assessment, so I know how to improve this in the future. I thank you guys for spending your lunch hour and then some with me. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I really feel that spending some time in the space where you think about your values, when you think about your strengths, it helps you be the better version of yourself and helps your personal brand be that much more impactful. So if you need help in the future, I'm very happy to help. And I look forward to seeing you guys hopefully in the future. And I'll let Stephanie take over.
Thank you, Jessie, and thank you everyone for joining us. Be sure to visit integrate.wvu.edu for upcoming sessions, recordings of previous episodes, and to subscribe to receive updates.